Irish sky, old stories hit high, tales of struggle and strife. Keep your head in the fight, broken bones in the street. Ain't no place for the weak, from the land of the brave, where the words cut deep. Coming next on the air now, feel the despair. Generation X, shout out, shattered somewhere. Rising up from the dark with a fire and spark. Rage and passion combined to leave a lasting mark. Coming next, shouting loud, voices from the crowd. Through the mist of...
Welcome to Common X Podcast, episode 21 with Jared and Ian. And we have a special treat for you here today. We have Graeson McGaha. And for those of you that weren't with us since the beginning, Graeson McGaha has been. Graeson is a Gen X influencer. He's funny as heck. He's a great comedian. And we've got him back for episode 21, Return of Graeson McGaha. How you doing today, buddy?
Man, I am great. Good to see you guys. Congratulations. We're at like 21. The podcast is officially old enough to drink. So cheers to the podcast.
I like that. It's official.
Let's do it. All right. We'll cover up the logo of whatever this is I'm drinking. I'm with you, buddy.
Cracking one open.
But yeah, man, this is you guys got like big people names on. Y'all are out here like getting all fancy, production studio and stuff. Like look at the backdrop over there. That's fancy, man.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
But it's cool, man. I'm so glad to be back here.
Dude, you know what? And it really all started with you. You were our first major influencer that we had.
All right, so first of all, if we're going to the comedy part, I ain't shit. I ain't nobody. I ain't nothing
That's
special.
awesome, Graeson.
I'm a goofball with a phone, man. That's really it. We were talking off air before the show, and I mean, I think that's really the biggest thing is just being consistent. I mean, if that's the one thing about the Gen X childhood and that, you know, that the tag-along kids and the Zennials, like the elder millennials, we all had the same reason. And I think that's kind of what drives me nuts with it. But like, everybody's like, how did you come up with your comedy? And I'm like, did you not have 13 years of neglect and trauma? Like, that's pretty much how that works, you know? Like, chose last for dodgeball, always the anchor in tug of war. Like,
Yep.
If you were not a little brother or a little sister who got left outside during hide and seek, then, you know, what are you doing?
Yeah, I can relate to that. Last in dodgeball and anchor and tug of war. At 6'6", they're like, it's easy to hit Jared.
Oh yeah, dude.
The slow giant.
I love all the Gen Xers that are like, oh, dodgeball was the best, and I'm like, not for the chunky kids.
No,
not for the chunky kids. Now we would dominate at Red Rover. Like,
breaking through that.
Like dislocating some collarbones playing Red Rover. I was always first round draft pick for that one.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, dodgeball, you were definitely there were a whole bunch of skinny fast kids standing behind you.
Yep.
You had to learn how to catch it. That was it. Like that was the only way I was going to win at dodgeball is if I caught it. Like I had to be fast. But
yeah, I was pretty fast at throwing them. So like if I could throw a few first, I could knock people on their butts. But eventually, there's the kid that's just faster than you.
Oh yeah, you're not. I'm not. Nobody is ever going to go. Graeson McGaha has cat-like reflexes. Like that is not the describing words that they're going to use for us. But you know, I think comedy-wise, I mean, that's really it for me, man. Is like I always you kind of adapt and overcome. So you know, always the chunky kid, and I got to the point to where like I don't know, growing up is one of those things. You can't bully me if I'm picking on myself. You know, yep. I was a really big Farley fan, a really big Belushi fan.
Oh yeah.
And that like physical comedy. And I remember there was a part in my mind that like, this is going to sound, I'm glad this podcast is the podcast, but you know, here's your clickbait for this one. It's going to sound really, really fucked up. But, I remember when Farley died and thinking to myself, well, he was chubby and funny. Farley always had a gorgeous girl. Like, I remember seeing that. Like, Farley always had a gorgeous girl on his arm, always wore the nicest suits, and he was a full-fledged movie star. And I'm like, so nobody cares that Chris Farley is overweight. They care that he's funny and famous.
Right.
And that, I know that sounds really weird, but that was always like my inspiration behind it. Same thing with Belushi. It was like, he was the chunky, funny guy. Nobody cared what he looked like. He was funny. So I guess I kind of like dove into that idea that, like, if I could make them laugh, I would be, I would be able to make friends. I would be popular.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when it came to his physical comedy, right?
Oh, yeah.
The whole bit he did as a Chippendales dancer, like
Yes.
every bit as fast as Patrick Swayze. Like
Oh,
he
and
was
like,
acting it there, but it's just more, it's funnier.
yeah, and had the moves. And I think it's one of those things, like, growing up in that generation. I mean, we grew up in the bully generation, right? Like, you were going to get picked on by your friends. People were going to talk shit. Like, you had to have thick skin. And I don't know, man. I know, like, in the generation we're in now, there's this whole, like, this whole anti-bullying movement and everything like that. But I do think, and this is going to sound bad, but I do think that, like, there's a level of character building on it. You have to adapt and overcome. And it's like, okay, I know you're going to pick on me about being fat. I know you're going to pick on me about being poor. You're going to pick on me for this. So if I can embrace that and get to that point to where there's nothing you can say that's going to bother me, and I'm going to pick on myself more than, than you are. Like, so it's almost that I know you are, but what am I kind of bullshit. But that was pretty much middle school for me. Like, okay, I'm getting picked on for being out of shape. I'm always going to be a little chunky. I mean, I could hit the gym all day long and throw weight out, and then it just never mattered, man. I was always hungry. I was always the kid who was like, "You gonna eat that pizza? Because I will totally eat that pizza." And it just became fun, man. And that physical comedy and that, doing the things that nobody expects you to do, reading a room and being like, all right, well, I'm going to break the awkward silence here. I always had a witty comeback, always had something going on. And it just kind of continued into adulthood of like, that's how I'm going to deal with these uncomfortable situations that nobody wants to talk about, because nowadays everybody's offended. But at the end of the day, everybody's thinking the same thing. Everybody has those intrusive thoughts in their head where they're like, this is stupid, this is bullshit, but everybody's afraid to say it. So I'm like, if I can say it and not in a hateful way, but make people giggle, then why wouldn't I?
Yeah, and I think honestly that's like the power of comedy, right? It's bringing light to situations that one nobody wants to talk about, but they all
Right.
want to talk about, right? But and it also brings it up in a humorous way, so it's easier to I don't know, choke down, I guess.
Well, it is one of those things. I mean, there's a lot of things nowadays that everybody feels like are, you know, you can't talk about that. And I'm like, why? Like, why
Right.
can't we talk about it? It's funny to talk about. And kids do silly things. So like, I'm very much so known as the feral wife guy now, because I just tell these stories of like the crazy stuff that my kids do, the crazy stuff my wife does. And I'm not dog walking my wife. I'm not like, God, my old lady is this. It's not Andrew Dice Clay, Rodney Dangerfield, like, take my wife, please. No, I think it's making fun of something that we all are going through. I'm working on
Yeah.
a bit right now about going to the grocery store and how my wife can send me 50, 11 TikToks a day. But if she sends me to the grocery store for one thing, all of a sudden, like, her phone is off. And I'm like, where's your phone? How do you not have your phone?
You wanted me to get what again? Did you want the milk chocolate chips or the dark chocolate
Oh,
chips?
yeah, absolutely.
The
Well,
chocolate chips.
I don't know the difference between salted and unsalted butter. Like, you said, get butter. I need you to be specific.
Exactly. I'm like,
But
well,
more of the fact that there's like 90 guys at the grocery store at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, all trying to FaceTime their wives like we are the forgotten children that, like, you know, you FaceTiming your wife and it's like the rapture came and we're the left behind. We're like, why won't she answer the phone?
Right.
You're always on the phone.
You're the one that wanted me to come here. You should have known by asking me to go. There would have been follow-up questions.
Exactly. Like,
Come
send
on.
me a picture. Send me the aisle that it's on. Tell me what you need.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, staple ingredients that we have in our house all the time when you go grocery shopping have vanished into thin air. People don't even know what I'm talking about. So I think that's it, man. That relatable part of it, man. Just taking the stuff that we all sit and huff and puff about and trying to laugh at is it's the way I deal with a lot of it, man. I mean, you guys are pretty blue collar. I mean, doing everything that you guys do. So you guys know what it's like to be away from your family for 80 plus hours a week. It drives you crazy. So you try to have as much fun with them as possible while you're around. And that's luckily I've been blessed to be able to do this as a full-time gig now. And then I'm just kind of, I feel like I owe it to, I mean, I was in factory settings for 18 years. I was working those hours. Feel like I owe it to all the guys that are out there doing that every day. Like, hey man, like this is relatable. You're laughing at it. Take a minute to watch this video and giggle and be like, man, I'm not the only one that's sitting here feeling this way.
Yeah. So are you doing like local stand-up comedy clubs there, or doing like tours, or how do you?
We've got some big things in the works that I'm not allowed to talk about. And then we've got some things that I am allowed to talk about. So when this airs, understand that go check my page out and maybe there will be some release dates. But as of right now, I have one big show in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, July 18th and 19th. It is at the Jersey Hustle Comedy Club up there in Gatlinburg. So we got Friday night and Saturday night, and that will be an hour set. So that will probably be the biggest thing I got going on. It's all new material. It's stuff that people have not heard. So it's going to be really cool. I'm excited about it. But yes, there are a lot of other smaller things that are coming up. It's really weird right now. And I don't mean to say it in a negative way, but it is, the juice has got to be worth the squeeze. Even as even trying to do this, I get offers to do things and I'm like, that would be great. I would love to fly out to Oklahoma and do your comedy club. However, like there has to be a way to make that happen. I'm still a dad, I'm still a husband, I still got kids in school. So, I get these offers of like, hey, come to our club. It's in Ohio and it'll be great. And I'm like, cool. This gig that you're wanting to pay me $300 for is going to cost me $1,800 to get there. I can't make that happen. So there has to be a level, and I know it's that hustle, it's that working and getting to it to where you can sell those tickets to where people are, because there's a lot of people that still feel like TikTok comedians aren't real comedians. So I'm trying to break that mold.
As you're talking, I was thinking something. I don't know, like brain blast, I guess. But it'd be cool as like a VR comedy show.
I did one during COVID. I'm not gonna. It was really cool.
Yeah, but like with the new Apple goggles, right? Like their AI technology or their AR technology, like those things are amazing. And so it feels like you're actually in the room. So if you could set it up in a VR way where it was like a big stadium, right? And everybody
I'd like to do something like that. That would be really cool. I did a Zoom comedy show, and let me tell you how. During COVID, that was. You think getting heckled in real life is bad? Try getting heckled in Zoom. Like, you can legitimately just see people who have paid to be at this show, like, close their screen. They're like, no, thank you. No, thank you. And it's the worst. You start with like 85 live people and you're sitting there waving and you're like, hey guys, how are you? And there's no reaction from the crowd because everybody's on mute. And then you just see people turn their camera off or like shut it. And you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, there is that technical laughs, right? Getting that feedback from an audience.
And I think that's the hardest part with doing social media comedy is like, and I don't want to sound very like whiny or anything like that, but you are depending on an algorithm. So
Mhm.
I've had videos that have gone nowhere on one platform, and then you put it up on Facebook or Instagram, and it's going to a completely different audience. And that
Right.
audience, is, so I've had videos that like on one platform will get 2,500 views and then just fizzle out and go nowhere. And then it's going viral on another platform. So it's just, I think it's trying to figure it out. And you can't get that real life connection. There's a big difference sitting in the car telling a joke and telling a story than, being on stage and seeing it. Because there's things that I think that are funny that maybe translate really, really good on camera that don't translate on stage, and vice versa. I mean, there's a lot of physical stuff I can't do with the camera. So
Well, it's like, when we grew up, like the first time I listened to Eddie Murphy was on cassette, right?
oh
Eddie
yeah.
Murphy Raw. My dad had it in his car, and we weren't supposed to listen to it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, we had to go in there and press play. So,
Yeah, I had a lot of Steve Martin records and a lot of Carlin records that my dad, we had a little, it was called Repo Records. I don't know if they're still out in Charlotte area. Shout out to them if they are. But they would have they had a dollar bin to where like it was used records, dollar bin. And I can remember going with my dad and like this buying records, buying comedy albums of even people I've never heard of before or anything like that. I'm like, I just want to know the cadence. I want to know the timing. Like, I want to see how well, you not see, but like listen to it. So I can remember listening to a lot of Steve Martin, a lot of Carlin. Um, oh God, Bill Cosby himself. He probably got say what you want to now about him now, but
but
during
when
the
we were,
'80s, he was America's
yeah, he
dad,
was awesome.
and it like we all
Yeah.
we all watched it, we all liked it. So you say what you want to about the man now, knowing what you did at that time. We did not know, and I listened to Bill Cosby himself over and over again, and just laughing at the big differences between guys like Carlin, who every other word was a dirty word, and then Cosby, who didn't have to cuss at all and could
Right.
still get the same point across. And I don't know. I'm very analytical with it. Like I want to know how to make it funny for different things. Like I don't get to cuss on social media because it just doesn't work. Some people can get away with it. If I drop anything too vulgar, they will cut it off. So it's challenged me to be able to tell the same joke three different ways. I got to
Right.
be able to tell it for a 18 and plus audience when I'm at a brewery doing a show and the libations are flowing. I got to be able to tell a nice little PG-13 corporate version of it, and then a
Right.
squeaky clean joke that's the same joke. It's still we're still talking about bumping uglies, but we got to find a way to make the same joke three different ways.
Right. A little more PC, depending on the audience.
For sure, and
Wow.
that's I think that's the
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. Like you look at Richard Pryor too. I mean, some of those guys. I mean, it was just crazy.
yes.
I mean,
I think if you were going to build a Mount Rushmore of comedy, it's all going to be those Richard Pryors and those Carlins and Robin Williams
yes,
and
Robin
and,
Williams.
and people like that, because there's just such and then there's comedians that don't even really do stand up. I mean, we were talking about Farley earlier, and
Oh, yeah.
Farley didn't really do stand up. He was a sketch comedy actor. Like I mean, he was still one of those people that we feel the funniest of all time kind of people. Like he's definitely a goat, but he never really did a lot of stand up. Like he did not tour as a stand up comedian. He did a lot of his stuff was all the sketch comedy. Steve Martin was kind of the same way. Like yeah, Steve Martin did stand
Yeah,
up, but he's far more known for the sketch comedy stuff than the stand up. But then you take people like Chris Rock. I don't see Chris Rock as an actor. I see Chris Rock as a stand-up comedian. Yes, he was on SNL. Yes, he's been in movies. He's very funny, but I mean, you know, guys like even like Eddie Murphy was Raw. I mean, yeah, sure, he was Donkey and all this other stuff, but like
Right.
80s
He's a
Eddie
movie star,
Murphy in the
yeah.
red, yeah, 80s Eddie Murphy in the red leather jacket is far different than what you're getting out of Shrek and Donkey.
Mhm.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. I think Dave Chappelle's kind of in there too. You know, like he had his show and everything else, but very much a stand-up comedian for sure.
And I think that I think with those real, yeah, with those real comedians, it's one of those things. Well, I don't mean to say a real comedian because they're all. I think the ones that go back to stand up is really one of those things. It's a talent of writing. Like Chappelle is one of those ones. I mean, the dude did 4 crazy good freaking Netflix specials in like 4 years, and they were all amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and they were all good. So I think it is one of those things that like there's definitely some people that just they can pump it out, and it's an art form, man. It's cool. You know, I look at guys like Rogan as kind of like see, everybody wants to build like this Mount Rushmore of comedy, and that's great, but you have to look at like generational. Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys now that, you know, I think there's a lot of guys now that are huge, like up there. Like I think you take guys like Rogan and Tom Segura and Bill Burr and Burt Kreischer and those guys are like those guys are doing great. You know, Cat Williams and Theo Vaughn. I mean, I think that social media has
Oh
made
yeah.
comedians so much more. Like you can find what you relate to. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, and I think like, Gaffigan's a good example of what you were talking about earlier, like having to do cleaner shows. Like I think he knows his audience is not quite, the Eddie Murphy Raw crowd. So,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
not
But I mean, it's the same thing though, Jared. I mean, like we grew up watching like what Monty Python and stuff like that, Kids
yeah.
in the Hall, you know, and those quotable movies like that. But could you really? I mean, I look at like Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is freaking. I mean, Blazing Saddles, Young
Wilder.
Frankenstein,
Yeah.
like is just amazing. I listened to a thing with Mel Brooks talking about like, could you do Blazing Saddles now? And he was like, this generation doesn't deserve it. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, he's like, it was meant to be offensive. It
Right.
was meant to make you uncomfortable. It was meant, but like, it was meant to make you feel a certain way.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
it's funny when you say that because it was meant to be a narrative of kind of what was going on in America. And
mm-hmm.
I think that is what comedy is great at, right? Is they have their finger on the pulse of whatever's going on, right? Depending on government or even societal, right? Like you're bringing up feral children and stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
a thing too. And so I think comedians bring that levity to the serious nature, or we'd all jump off and end our life. What is it now on TikTok? End of lifers or
Unalive.
unalive?
Unalive.
Yeah, right.
Unalive. Yeah.
Drives me crazy.
Dude, there's so much
Censorship
of
is
it.
real. Right.
There's so much of it that just drives me nuts. Like the fact that I can't say certain things
Right.
drives me nuts. I have to say unalive. I have to say it's the podcast, buddy. Go play. I'll be back. It's like I have to say unalived. I'm not allowed to say gun. I have to say pew
Right.
pew. And I'm
Right.
like, you know, you can't say that you got TikTok banned. You have to call it being bananaed. And I'm like,
Right.
but I play with it too because it is one of those things that it's almost so PC that it's comical because
Right.
it's you know, I've got a bit that is honestly a playoff of George Carlin's "Dirty Words You Can't Say," but
Nice.
I grew up in a very religious household, to like
Same.
a very Southern Baptist household. I grew up with
Mm.
a mother who said like fiddlesticks instead of the F word, and
Yep.
I've always giggled because we know what you're trying to say,
We know
and
what
if
you
you're
want to
using it, if you're using it as a expletive without doing it, it doesn't make it any better.
say. Right.
Like just because you say mother trucker doesn't mean that I don't know what you mean.
Right. We know where that went in our
Mhm.
brain. But then they can say, well, I didn't say the word. I just made you
Well,
think.
and that's honestly the fun
That
part
difference?
about it is like it's like, okay, we know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
It's like watching a Samuel L. Jackson movie on like TBS. Like it's great.
Yep.
And it's like this is really like this is great. So I try to have as much fun with it as I can because I mean social media is a thing, and I will openly admit there are people who have seen me on social media that come to see me live, and a lot of it is the same thing, but then a lot of it is I do see those faces every now and then where it's clutching their pearls and they're like, oh, and I'm like,
Right.
what'd you think I was saying to begin with? Like,
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of political stuff because I really think it's just overplayed, and
Yeah.
it's there. If I do political stuff, I will take it and make it such a obscure reference that it almost makes people giggle. I did a
Right.
bit the other day about the money missing from the Pentagon, or not the
Mhm.
Pentagon, but I guess Elon said something about money missing at from Fort Knox, and I was like, I trust government with money a lot like I trust toddlers with forks. Like, I know that I had forks. I'm
Right.
aware that we have them here. I bought
Mhm.
them. I don't know what happened to all of them. Are you throwing my forks away? No.
Right.
Then where are all my forks? Like,
Right.
and
The dryer, the dryer
why
in the
is there a
sock.
crock pot under my bed?
Right. Why do you have 3 bowls in your room? I'm pretty sure we said you were supposed to eat in your room.
I found a whole ass hot pocket under his bed one day, and I'm like, ow.
I got a one better. So my son went and got a carton of ice cream out of the freezer, ate probably, I don't know, 20 bites, left the rest of it hidden behind his dresser. I
Oh,
come in a couple of days later, I'm like, what's that smell? It smells like rotten milk or something.
yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I bought Neapolitan because I was like, everybody will want something out of this because nobody could agree. And then my oldest son, this is my 16-year-old, he ate all of the chocolate. He's like, nobody else gets chocolate. You guys can have strawberry and vanilla, but he like just one giant scoop. He was like, "What?" I was like, "No, you're supposed to share. Like I wanted all of the flavors.
Yeah, there's other people here, man. Come on.
I just wanted chocolate." It's the
Yeah.
best. And it looks like we might be traveling a lot here soon, so like I'm kind of hoping that it will work.
You throw all the feral children in the trailer attached to the motorhome.
Um uh so like full transparency, our youngest is on the verge of homeschooling. That was we were probably going to do that. Like this very well might be his last week in real school. We've had a lot of issues this year with bully situations and the school just not really taking the initiative, like communication. Like
Right.
we got progress reports the other day, and it was like he had like a 60 something in
Mm,
a reading class. And I'm like, this would be something that, like, I feel like if he was failing, you should tell us. Like,
right.
not, I remember hiding things, but we're talking like third graders here. So all the
They're
text
like, here's
messages
the email.
about, yeah, all the text messages you're willing to send me about PJ Day or dress like a book character day. You can't send me a text message that says, hey, we need to talk about Logan's grades. Like,
Yeah. I finally switched to incentivizing them. So I give them, what was it, $10 for an A, 5 for a B, nothing for a C, -5 for a D, and -10 for an F.
Ooh, the negative. I like that.
That
my
seems to
kids,
be working.
my kids, luckily, I've lucked out with them. They definitely got the academic stuff from their mother because I was a horrible student. But like, I have been very fortunate with them that both of them are very academically gifted, always A, B honor roll. And that's why it was one of those things for us, like with him to get like a 60 something in a reading class. I'm like, but he still goes to like the smart people class. Like y'all pull him out of class to go to the smart people class, and like this just isn't making any sense. And I think a lot of it too, like I we grew up in a different generation. Like this is a Gen X podcast. We grew up in a different generation to where a bully situation was handled.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I do not advocate for violence, but it does solve a lot of problems sometimes. And especially a bully situation. A lot of the times, you know, somebody's going to talk a lot of shit. They get popped in the jaw. They don't talk shit anymore.
Exactly.
And it's and a lot of the times with bullies, it's one of those things that they're going to keep doing it until you give them a reason not to. It is a FAFO situation. They're going to keep effing and A-ing until you give them that find out. And
stop bubble wrapping our kids.
Yeah, and for all of this, you know, we're going to sign an anti-bullying pledge, and we have zero excuses for bullying. And then you start having a situation where you're like, all right, hey, this needs to be addressed. Then it becomes well, we need to understand what everybody's going through, and not everybody's family has the same, you know, thing. And we're going to give second chances. And what kind of people would we be if we forgot about them now and let them down? We are failing them. And I'm like, no, he's an asshole. You knew he was an asshole. He's always been an asshole. Like, his dad's an asshole. His mom's an asshole.
Right.
Like, the cycle is not going to break because you're afraid to, well, and I think schools are afraid of getting sued. I think teachers, I love teachers, but I do think that there's this red tape of getting involved and not wanting to hold people accountable. And, you know, you're worried about getting sued because now it's like, really, at the end of the day, kids are little jerks. I mean, it is what it is.
Is that a rare April sighting?
It was a rare April sighting. Come in. Sorry, April wanted to come in and say hi, Graeson.
Hi, sweetheart.
Oh, he's getting his wife.
She may not go on camera because it's definitely a she doesn't go on camera thing.
Oh, I know. My wife just loves your wife.
Yes.
It's a feral thing. It's a feral
thing. I know that you won't go on camera because you never go on camera, but will you say hello to April just so that they know that you exist?
I do exist.
Yes.
Hey, April.
Thank you, dear.
Hi. You said
Y'all, because they're recording.
Yes, they're recording, so I know that you don't normally come in. This probably won't get put into it, but either way.
There's a good chance it will.
Yeah. Amber just doesn't go on live, and it's honestly gotten to the point now to where it's so funny because, like, she has her own fan base, and she does not have a TikTok. She doesn't have a social media. Like, we have a TikTok for the business, like for the sticker business, and everybody's always like, tag your wife's TikTok. So I'll tag it, and then they're pissed off that it's just videos of me. I tag it, and then it goes from comedy videos to, hey guys, these are the stickers that we have dropping this week. And everybody's like, where is Amber? And I'm like, she doesn't like it, you know. And it is one of the things, man. I mean, social media is not for everybody. Not everybody likes it. She is the most introverted extrovert that I've ever met. She likes to keep her peace. And I think for us too, it's the same reason, like, I used to put my kids in videos and things like that, but I don't want to like toot my own horn, but the bigger we get, the more like
it feels like the world's closing.
It kind of feels like the world's closing in.
Yeah.
So that little bit of privacy is lovely. We've had a couple situations where, like, we've been out in public. I mean, we've been recognized as fun, but we've had a couple situations where we've been out in public, and like, you know me, you know, like I will take a picture with you. I will do all of this. I'm nothing but loving to those people, but like, they're not a part of this. They are, but they
Mhm.
don't.
Right.
They may not want it, and that's always the thing. We've had a couple people where it's like, no, a family photo, and I'm like, I don't put pictures of my kids online, so we're not doing a family photo. And people on
Yeah.
we've had
No,
most
no.
people are very understanding, but we
Right.
have had some that are like they're like, well, he was rude, and I'm like, I wasn't rude. They can't consent. I can't consent to something for them.
If they said yes,
Right.
it'd be a different story.
Like if my
Right.
kids were like, yes, I want to be a part of it. Now little man will ham it up. Like he wants it all. But my wife and my oldest son, they're like, you really want to take a picture of us at Costco? Like we're standing in front of, we're standing in front of the toilet paper, and this is not exactly, yeah, photos. So,
Got a good deal on some rolls here.
yeah, exactly. We're at
Yeah, for
Costco doing
sure,
our
man.
thing. I
Hey,
really don't
did you
need a
ever play
group
lawn
picture.
darts as a kid?
Oh,
Lawn darts is a wonderful game, and it needs to be brought back. I do think we need to change the name from lawn darts to Darwin darts because it's the best. It's the best. I
with
miss
the
those kind of things,
optional
though.
flame on.
I'm telling you, though.
Yeah, man. I was like,
They do make them now, but they're like super Nerf soft tip lawn darts.
Yeah.
I've played. I don't. I've seen on eBay where you can get like a box of jarts, like real lawn darts that we played with as kids. But
Mm.
we grew up a little bit poorer too, so we didn't really play lawn darts. We just threw rocks at each other. So there's that too.
Yeah. Dirt clod fights.
yeah, for sure, man.
Fights. Yep.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
everything was always a game that my dad or somebody would make up, or one of the dads in the neighborhood would be like, "We're gonna draw a circle in chalk. All the kids run into the circle, and I'm gonna throw rocks in the air. Don't get hit." And it's like, this is the best game. It's called
If you
Hailstorm.
get hit, you're out.
Yeah,
Literal.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's go outside and play war. I don't have a BB gun. I've got a 22 though. Oh yeah, that's fine. Bring that.
Oh yeah. Oh, freaking pellet gun fights and all the things were amazing back in the day. I think if you grew up in that Gen X generation, you definitely have a real appreciation for a good stick. Like even as an adult, I'll go out with my kids and I'll be like, that's a keeper stick right there. It's a solid sword,
Yeah,
It's the
I
best.
still got an indent on my forehead from a pellet gun.
Mhm.
I'm like, reset, no face shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
My kids wanted to do archery, so I was down with that too until I was like, hold on a second. Like this game is not called Run. Like we don't get to play this game. Like, I bet you I could hit it all the way up. No, don't do that.
So I've been excited to ask you this. So we started doing something since the last time we had you on here, Grayson. We do something called Jared's Five. So he's going to ask you some questions, and we interact with the guest that was on before and the guest that's on after.
All right, let's do it.
Jared.
All right, you ready?
I'm excited now. Let's see.
All right. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh, favorite movie of all time. I'm gonna be honest. I could watch Forrest Gump over and over again, so I definitely will go for
Yes.
Forrest Gump.
Run, Forrest, run.
Choice. Yeah.
Yep.
Stupid is as stupid does.
It teaches you valuable life lessons.
Yes. All right. What was your
I
favorite?
wore that VHS out.
Oh.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those movies that like even if nobody really watches TV anymore, but like if you turn it on and it's on TBS, you're like, I guess I'm not going anywhere today on Sunday. You're like, I'm gonna get stuck watching this movie again.
Yeah. All right. Next question. What was your favorite cartoon growing up?
Oh, GI Joe. I would watch GI Joe. I will still
Yes.
watch it now. Um, all the GI Joe stuff. I mean, I think I have a love for GI Joe and for all of the cartoons like Smurfs and Fraggle Rock and like all of the stuff we grew up watching. Thundercats,
Yep.
all amazing. But GI Joe was one for me because that was the first real action figures. Even though nobody really wants to talk, like GI Joe was the first show that I could remember having, like watching the show and then being able to go out to the store and like buy a GI Joe.
Yep.
Like that was a cool one.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Next one. What's one thing you think people should know about you that maybe they don't?
Ooh, that depends on how much tea we're gonna spill. I don't know. I feel like I'm an open book about a lot of things. I will definitely throw this one out that everybody always laughs at me about, but um, I have been in three ballets. I've been in three ballets as a lead role. I was in three ballets because our high school needed a dude. So when I was in high school, I had to have extracurriculars to graduate, and they put me in a ballet class. So that's probably one I always laugh at is like my requirement was you don't have to dance, you don't have to change out, you don't have to do any of this. We need a dude to be able to do this. That's all we need you to do. I had to do the dirty dancing part. That was it. You know, I had to pay Patrick Swayze. That was it. I was just the base for it.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
so yeah, but I was in the junior spring ballet, and then the my senior year I was in the winter formal and the summer formal ballet. And each time I played the bad, like some bad guy, Sultan guy, whatever, you know, the heavy set dude who is the bad guy. That's what I got to be.
Nice.
All right. Number 4. What advice would you give your teenage self today?
Pull out.
That's a good one.
Oh man.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Oh,
That's not
that's
my
a good one. I like it.
that is not my Doc Brown Back to the Future moment. You know, it kind of is, but it
Love you,
kind of
kid.
is. Like, you know, just Marty, we gotta go back to the future. Hold on a second. We gotta make a stop real quick. Like, just give me 1 second. Just punch yourself right in the nuts. Come on, dude. What are you doing? Um, advice I would give my teenage self. I mean, if I'm going to be real smart and not the comedian that says pull out, I think we would all love to go back and tell ourselves like you're worth it. Don't like don't sweat the small stuff. It gets so much better. Um, but hindsight being 2020, I think everything does happen for a reason. So that back in time thing. I mean, we could all be like, yeah, go invest in this and do Bitcoin and your life, but your life wouldn't be what it was if you got to go back and give yourself a little bit of advice. So, I mean, truthfully, probably don't sweat the little stuff, but pull out is a far better answer.
I like them both. All right. And the question from our last guest was, what gets you up in the morning?
At this point in time in my life, it's normally my bladder, but that's usually it. At this point in my life, it's normally that. But I am motivated every day to break the ideas of that. I don't have a crazy great relationship with my family, and I spent a long time working my butt off, working night shift. I mean, I did night shift for 18 years. So with my oldest son, like, I didn't get to do the baseball games. I didn't get to do a lot of this stuff because I was working to get us functional. And luckily, with running our own business, we run a print shop. So I don't want any of the listeners to be like, "Oh, this guy's a TikTok social media influencer. That's all he does." No, like, we did everything ourselves. Like, we run our own merch. We run a print shop. We print for 3 or 4 other companies as well. And that's what we do. Like, I work for my wife, who she makes stickers. We make custom stickers. And we've done a lot for a lot of different companies and things like that. If you have a logo, we can make stickers. We have a friggin' Honda Civic parked over here on her desk of this crazy big industrial machine. And I think the idea that I want to show my kids and myself that, like, if you want it and you want to work hard for it, you can do it. You don't have to. I always hated that phrase, life is hard, because I feel like there should be another part to it. Life is hard, but it's also what you make it. Yes, working sucks. I talk a lot about corporate greed. I talk a lot about the exploitation of workers, but you still have to work. I've never had this idea that I was owed anything. I feel like companies should do better. I feel like if you're a multi-billion-dollar company and your people can't afford housing and can't afford bare necessities, but you're recording record profits, well, you're not recording record profits. You're not paying your people a wage. Your profits are coming from the fact that you're not paying these people. And we talked about that last time, but that you can really do it. I mean, that's what gets me out of bed is the idea that, like, I want people to have nice shit to say about me at my funeral. I want my kids to actually want to be involved in my life. I don't want to be the old man who's sitting in the nursing home whose kids never go and see him because they're tired of him. I want my kids to see that, like, you don't have to be AB honor roll. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to do all these things that society tells you is the gateway to success, because success looks different for everybody.
Right.
Totally agreed.
That's true.
All right. So last one is, what's your question for our next guest?
I want the question for the next guest should be, who inspires them to do what they do. Like that, I think that's a good one, because that, like, who inspires you? Not what gets you out of bed, but who makes you go, who makes you want to do what you do? Because when we talked about Farley and Robin Williams and Belushi and those guys, those were the guys that I was like, this is doable. Somebody is doing this. Right. Farley was one of those guys for me that was like, hey, people laugh at him. I look like him. I say the goofy things he says. Like, I feel socially awkward. I've broken a chair or two a day in my life. So, who makes you go, who inspires you to go, hey, I want to be like this person, or I want to be better than this?
Awesome.
Because SNL is still the goal. If Lauren Michaels is listening to this podcast, which he should be, because this is single-handedly the best podcast on all of the podcast. You need to go back, listen to all of them, Lauren Michaels. But if anybody from ABC, NBC, or any of those people that could get in contact with Lauren Michaels, I still want to be a part of the cast. I'm willing to shave my beard for it if that's really a thing. I mean, let me be the Tim Meadows, where the guy's been on SNL for like 45 years and nobody seems to notice.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it. Let's get Graeson McGaha on SNL. That's awesome. Graeson, you've been awesome, man. Thanks for coming out again. For all of our listeners that haven't already, go see Graeson McGaha on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms, YouTube. Hit him up. Graeson McGaha Tik-Talk comedy. And thank you for joining us on episode 21, The Return of Graeson McGaha.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Graeson.
Thank you guys. Like, y'all are like one of the very few people I actually say yes to. So it's
That's awesome.
it's
man.
crazy, man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. And that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week, and hopefully from content that you guys want to see. So reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.